sign only faces this way, but you can come over and read it. And it has a QR code that will take you to the webpage for the sculpture.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of Ukraine. Пані і панове, гімн України. Не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Слава Україні! Героям слава! Слава Україні! Героям слава! Слава Україні! Героям слава!
Yeah, I'm going to sing another song in Ukrainian. It's Червона Калина. You have it printed. This is in Ukrainian. I hope you support me. Thank you. No, I don't need it.
Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, щось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну країну розвеселимо. Марширують стисі сітьові у кривавий тан, визволяти братів українців з ворожих кайдан. А ми наших братів українців визволимо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо.
а ми наших братів українців визволимо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. Не журися, червона калина, маєш білий світ. Не журися, славна Україна, маєш вільний рід. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. А ми нашу червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a really good morning. Sunny, calm, with all those beautiful trees around us. Yes, with quiet blue sky over us. Just paradise. But it is not like this in my country now. Its name is Ukraine. So that's why, despite all of beauty around me, I will start with a poem about war. The poet is Lina Kostenko. She put in this poem not just her brilliant talent, she put into it her wisdom. On March 14, 2022, this wonderful woman turned 92. So that's I'm saying that she put in this poem her 92-year wisdom. Ліна Костенко. І жах, і кров, і смерть, і відчай, і клекіт хижої орди. Маленький сірий чоловічок накоїв чорної біди. Це звір огидної породи, лохнес холодної Неви. Куди ж ви дивитесь, народи? Сьогодні ми, а завтра ви. For translation, I started with a translation by my friend Елена Ковязина-Задерновская, and I adapted it. The horror and blood and death and despair and the roar of the predatory horde. A little plain and worthless man caused such a dark terror. This is a beast of disgusting breed, Loch Ness of cold Russian Neva. Why are you looking on, the nations? Today he is trying to destroy us. Tomorrow it could be you. But I have to say that Russian poetry is mostly not about war, fighting, and dark things. The softness and what happened? Ukrainian? I'm sorry, what is it? What, say again, Alinchka. I said Ukraine. Of course, Ukrainian. Maybe I'm sorry. I'm a little bit nervous. So the softness and warmth of Ukrainian language is most suited to help human beings to express themselves in poetry of love, to express their admiration of beauty of nature, to help them to express their excellent sense of humor. So, you know, the linguists compare Ukrainian language to Italian because how musical it sounds. So the next year, Lena Kostenko's poem dedicated to Ukraine during peaceful times. Буває, часом сліпну від краси. Спинюсь, не тямлю, що воно за диво. Оці степи, це небо, ці ліси. Усе так гарно, чисто. Усе так гарно, чисто, незрадливо. І все як є, дороги, явори. Усе моє, все зветься Україна. Така краса, висока і нетлінна, що хоч спинись і з Богом говори. And this was translated by Olga Dalakava, my friend too, and I adapted it. At times I stand by the beauty of this land. I stop unable to comprehend a miracle before my eyes. Those steps, those sky, these forests, all these are so beautiful, so pristine, so flawless. Just as it is, the road, the maple groves. This is my land, and it is called Ukraine. Such beauty, lofty and eternal, a moment to pause and speak with God. You know, every poem has its inner music. That's why we're calling them sisters, poetry and music. The last poem which I'm going to read a little bit longer than the previous two, so you will have an opportunity to listen to it for some time without translation. To listen to it like you are listening, let's say, music and concert music. Just listen the music of language. Панна Маргарита. Жила старенька панна Маргарита. Була весна, вікно було відкрите. Вікно було відкрите і зігріте, і панна забувала постаріти. Надвечір абажурчика світіння, від брам старих такі казкові тіні. І от життя простого, наче звичка, лягала тінь, прекрасна й фантастична. А дні навшпиньках легко так ступали, щоб не почула жінка у вікні. І світ був тайна. І єдине в нім всезнаючим була старенька панна. Таким далеким і таким осібним, таким крилатим поглядом вона дивилась, наче бачила з вікна зовсім не те, що бачили сусіди. Цей двір, цей дім і жінка з гобелена, що майже вицвів, як його не згадав. Цей срібний дим, підсвічений зеленим, котився над квітучим палісадом. Я все вже забула. Пам'ятаю лише, що я росла, і світ був тайна. Ну, як? So, я хотіла, I was going to ask you, did you like this music of the language? So I don't need to ask you, right? Okay, great, I'm so happy. But translation, this adapted translation by Olga Dalakava too. There lived a little lady named Margarita. It was spring. The window was open. The window was open and warm. A lady was forgetting to age. At dusk, the light from the lantern shone. An old portal cast shadows as if from fairy tales. And the simple life, as if out of habit, cast a shadow beautiful and magical. The days tiptoed by gently, so that woman at the window didn't notice. And the world was a mystery. In it, the only omniscience was a sweet old lady. Her gaze was so distant, so special and fleeting, as if she was able to see from her window not at all what her neighbors saw. The yard, the house, and the woman as if from tapestry. almost forgotten it all. Just remember, I was growing, and world was a mystery. So, from the bottom of my heart, I wish Ukraine to win and to return to its peaceful life. Thank you for your attention. You are wonderful listeners. I was happy, it was my pleasure to read for you. And thank you for your interest in Ukraine, and of course for your help. And thank you for coming here. The last word I should say, this sculpture, I don't know who exactly chose it, but the people who choose it have a great sense of taste. This is beautiful.
Thank you, Irina. That was lovely. We have one more poem to be performed by Andriy Boyko. Welcome.
Thank you. I have this translated. This poem was written by Ukrainian writer and warrior Boris Gumenyuk in 2014 near Donetsk. What do you mean, sir, by estimating my chances to survive in this war at 50%? Which 50% exactly should I give to my country? Should I give my beloved country my legs and keep my hands? Then it's great. Take my legs. Here they are. For me, it's enough to keep my hands. So I can hold the rifle lying in the trench, to throw grenades, to pick up the phone and call fire on me, to hug my own children. Yet, it's a pity that I will never hug the best woman in the world, my wife. After all, I do not want her to see the 50% left of me. Should give my beloved country my eyes and keep my ears so I can hear which side shots are coming from, to hear his steps in order to have time to prepare a grenade and blow me up along with him. Then it's great. Here are my eyes. This is the left one and this is the right one. Watch out, do not mix them up. The right one is better to aim and find the target. Keeping my ears is enough for me. When I sit in the wheelchair, in the underground passage, blind and footless, begging. Hearing busy housewife and other honest citizens say how sick they are of those disabled bums, polluting streets of their cities, blocking the walk with children and dogs. Would be great to keep them all in one place locked up. And maybe, sir, it means half of my life. I'm 35. I'm 2 years older than Jesus. Oh my God, how much I can complete in 2 years. How many times I can kiss my love. How many soft words to tell my mom. I have 2 children. Do you have children, sir? I have 4. 4 daughters. Oksana, Zariana, Christina, Olesya. We did not plan for that many, but I wanted a son. But children are such happiness, sir. Every second is joy in my soul. The next one should have been a son. If I should give half of my life to my country, he is my half. Still, it's a pity that my half is over. I do not regret anything. If I knew, I would have lived a little differently. What about you, sir? You are 49? It turns out that you took a loan of your life from your own country. I understand. if you take 35 as the tipping point, then in order to live to 49, a boy should die together with us. A 21 years old boy? How is it, sir? Do I understand it right? Because 2 kids shouldn't die. 2 kids of age 10 and a half. Children should not be a part of this diabolical arithmetic in this war. Do not be silent, sir. Better tell me, what should I do with my heart, which pounds here under my ribs like a soldier's boot? How can I give 50% of my heart to my country if it already belongs to it 100%? What should I answer to it? The enemy artillery rescued us. Firing of our positions began. Then everyone was listening only to his own weapons. And one who was 35, and the one who was 49, and the one who was 21. Thank you. It's about 8 years when this poem was written, 8 years ago. But now you know about heroes in Mariupol and all around Ukraine who fighting for our independence. Years, for hundreds of years, songs which we signing, which was song of Ukrainian insurgent army who fought for our independence 100 years ago. And people were killed in Soviets for just having this song, and this is our fight for our independence, and we will win. Thank you.
So the first people arrived to Ukraine 150,000 years ago. They came from Caucasus along the shore of the Black Sea and from Balkans, again along the shore of the Black Sea. We'll be jumping thousands and hundreds of years to make this interesting and a short presentation. So Ukraine is mostly a flat country, and it is important also now when we see that it can be attacked from any direction. But the important thing is that 2/3 of Ukraine is very fertile soil. It's called a black soil or or chernozem in this area. And it's not a wonder that first agricultural communities were established in Europe in this area in South Ukraine between the Bug and Dniester rivers between 4,000 and 5,000 years BC. Slavic people began their journey from this area near the Carpathian Mountains, and the biggest, strongest tribe of Slavic people was Polanians. According to the legend, brothers Ki, Shek, and Horiv and their sister Libid came to this area on the Dnieper River shore. So this is a Dnieper River around 482 AD. And they established a city in this beautiful place and called it after the eldest brother Ki. And that's why we have Kyiv here. Kievan people had established trading ties with Greece via the Black Sea and the Greek cities that were established in Crimea and on the northern shore of the Black Sea. And in 862, Norwegians came and Scandinavians came from Baltic Sea through the river systems all the way to the Black Sea. They found this way and established a trading route between Greece, Middle East, and Northern Europe. So Kiev was a very in very good location on this route. It also provided its own furs and honey to this trade, and the Varangians, the Vikings, they settled here. The other name for them was Rus or Ros, Norsemen, and that's why that region became a Kievan Rus. Through the 200 years of Kievan Rus existence, this nation grew its influence from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, and from the Volga River to the Danube River here. So it was the biggest state in Europe at that time. Mostly they dealt in trade, using these routes that we described earlier. If we see here, there is a huge plain where the nomadic people were coming from, starting from 1,000 years BC. And specifically what interests us right now is 13th century. Mongol hordes came from here to this region, and in 1237 they captured the East-South Slavs, and in 1240 they captured Kiev, and that was the decline of the Kievan Rus. Ukrainian people concentrated in this area, Galicia and Volhynia, and this part of the Ukraine was at the time almost deserted. 100 years of Galicia and Volhynia. After that, they were captured by Lithuanian kingdom and then by Polish kingdom, establishing what is called in history Polish Commonwealth. At that time, the Mongol declining empire, they receded to this area. Here we will have Ottoman Empire, the modern day Turkey, and in Crimea we will have Tatar Khaganate. And here will be the deserted fertile lands that Poles will very much want to move into in order to produce food for the growing population of the Europe. So at the time, peasants who lived here, they didn't own the land. They had to serve. They had to go to the nobleman's land to work it 1 or 2 days a week, and that's how they paid for their right to work their own land. What Polish noblemen did, they offered Ukrainians here, they offered freedom from servitude, 10 to 30 years of freedom of servitude, much bigger lands, in order for them to move in this area. So there was, the people who did this were very bold. Yeah, they moved in the unknown area, which will be constantly attacked by Tatars from the Tatar Khaganate. So the main business of the Tatars here was slavery. They would capture slaves and take them to the vast Ottoman Empire, who was constantly the slaves were there in high demand. So over 200 years, from 15th to 17th century, 500,000 people would be taken, estimated, from this area to be slaves in Ottoman Empire. That's why the people who moved here, it was said that they would be plowing with their muskets at the ready. So they new arms, that had arms. It's a very unique situation as opposed to other peasants in a feudal Europe. Also, at the time, the life expectancy would be 30 to 40 years. So with 30 years freedom from servitude, these people would grow up free. They will consider themselves free, and they will consider themselves the owners of the land. And that's a very important thing for Ukrainian for Ukrainian self-awareness. So they grew up here as a free people who protect themselves. And that's when the name of Ukraine was born. So Ukraine means borderland, or in American terms, frontier. So when we have American history, we have a western frontier. Here we have an eastern frontier. The border between populated Europe and deserted Asia. The border between forest and the steppe. The border between civilized Europe and nomadic, less civilized culture here. And the frontiermen who lived here, they also they had something very similar as cowboys. They would go hunt to the hunting expeditions, to the cattle grazing expeditions, into the vast steppe here. But as opposed to American history, they will meet a very strong enemy, organized enemy. They will need to organize themselves. So they chose their leaders based on experience. They organized in bigger and bigger parties. They built temporary shelters, which became fortresses at the time. And they became a military organization. That's what we call Cossacks. Cossacks, they were also a democracy, because that's how they started. They started by choosing their own leaders. So they continued that. They had an election for the main leaders. It was called Hetman or Hetman. It was a shouting election, meaning they would shout for the candidate, and whichever party shouts the most, the loudest, their candidate will become a leader. But again, that's a democracy, and they will, in time, not only engage in hunting, they will actually consider themselves protectors of Ukrainian people. They will protect Ukrainian people from Turks. They were so successful, they would also raid Turkish slavery cities. They would make a slave liberation raids in 1610, Kefa, the most famous ones. And in 1624, Istanbul, the heart of the Ottoman Empire, they were bold enough to raid it successfully. But at the time, they were already not only protecting Ukrainian people from Turks, they will be starting to protect Ukrainian people from Polish noblemen, because at the time the Polish magnates, the very wealthy noblemen, landowners here, they will start to oppress the peasants. They will demand not 1 or 2 days a week, they will demand 5-6 days a week of servitude. That's a huge toll on the peasant family. And a lot of people would run from this region of Ukraine and go to the siege, to the main Cossack fortress, where they can be free. And this area will remain free till more or less free till the 18th century, because of how Cossacks of strong Cossack state. So, who watched Braveheart? Who did see Braveheart? So, the Braveheart story is very similar to what we will see right now. So, as you remember, Braveheart is a minor nobleman who lives in a village peacefully, and then he decides to marry, and the noble comes and kidnaps his wife, and that's how the revolt starts. So the same thing would happen with Bogdan Khmelnytsky in the 17th century. He was a lower nobleman, a Cossack captain also, and he would settle down in the mid-Ukraine here. At some point, he was married before. He had a son. His wife passed away, and he was to marry again. At that time, he went to some errand outside his holding. The Polish nobleman will come and try to capture his land, he will kill his son and kidnap his wife-to-be. Khmelnytsky tried to negotiate. He was laughed away by the Polish magnates, and he started a revolt which will be one of the most important parts of Ukrainian history. So started as a small revolt. In the year they will capture all this area and almost get to Warsaw. Nobody knows still why they didn't go to Warsaw and basically capture the whole Poland. We don't know this. But what we know is that for 6 years Cossacks were holding this land. And notice again the strife of Ukrainian people for freedom and independence. The minor chance they had, they will always take it. So at this time they will try to establish their government here. They will transition the Cossacks into civil government. The Cossack commanders will start to be the regional rulers and things like that. But the problem, a military problem for the Ukraine was then, as it's similar now, they were lacking tanks. The tanks of the day was the cavalry. So they had to make a deal either with Tatar Khaganate here or with the rising Muscovite state here. And here we will see a very important thing. So basically the Khmelnytsky and his captains, they wanted to make a deal with Tatars because the Ottoman Empire, they didn't have an interest in this area. So Khmelnytsky, as an educated man, he realized that they will be able to hold the independence, to hold the autonomy, and Ottoman Empire wouldn't be interested to capture this land. As opposed to Muscovite Empire, who at the time already pronounced themselves as owners of all this land. That was their legitimacy for their rule in the first place. But for the peasants, peasants wanted to side with the Muscovite Empire because, first of all, they were Christians as opposed to the Muslim Turks. Turks were capturing slaves, and the deal was the Turks will capture slaves in a Polish area. But what they did, they did the most the easiest things. They will come to this area and capture Ukrainian peasants, and obviously that wasn't very very appealing to the Ukrainian peasant. And the interesting thing is why I'm telling you all this, that they held a meeting, they held a consultation of the Cossack elite with the peasants, with the lower Cossacks, and they went with the lower Cossack opinion because that was the majority. Despite the fact, through all feudal history, noblemen will just do what they want. Not here. This is a deep democratic roots. So they went with a peasant decision, and they made this alliance with Moscow. The original document is lost, so we never know what exactly was the terms of this alliance. What we know that in a year, Moscow already will start to act as if it was their land. They will negotiate with Poles, not even inviting the Cossack representatives to the negotiations. In 100 years, they will dissipate the Cossackdom completely, slightly chunking off from the Ukrainian autonomy, piece by piece. 1775, Catherine II will give an order to capture the main fortress, the siege of Ukrainians, and that was the end of the Cossackdom. But again, we will see chance after chance, when they have a chance to have an independence, they will take it no matter what. So we will see then in 100 years after this happened, Ukrainians will very much regret their decision to side with Moscow. The Russian noblemen who received lands here, they put Ukrainian peasants in much worse servitude. It was almost like slavery. As opposed to Polish servitude, they would own the people. They would sell, they would gamble away whole families. That was a very dark part in the Ukrainian history called the ruin. Ukrainian language was oppressed basically through the 300 years of Russian rule over Ukraine. Only Ukrainian language would be spoken mostly by peasants, and any attempt for literary development would be oppressed by the state at some point. In 1917, Ukraine again tries to, in 1920s, they will try to get their independence, establish a state, establish the government. Soviet Russia will come and capture this again. In 1944, after the war, Stalin will decide that Crimean Tatars who remain to live here, and I wanted to say that now Crimean Tatars, despite the fact that we had wars with Tatars and with Turks, now we have a great relationship with Turks. Tatars are very much welcome, a part of the Ukrainian community. Poles are the best friends of Ukraine right now. So that gives us hope for the far future, for the peace in this region in general. So in 1944, Stalin will decide that he doesn't want Tatars here. So he will just come and put 80,000 households into the cattle carriages, train carriages, and ride them all the way to Asia and settle them there. They will be able to return only in 1980s. 8,000 people will die during this road. So it's a very hard oppression. In 1954, the economically failing and deserted region of Crimea will be assigned to the Ukrainian Republic inside the USSR, and that's how the Crimea became a part of Ukraine. And again, as I said, the minute they got a chance for independence, they will take it. 1999, the Soviet Union dissipated, and in August 24th, Ukrainians will pronounce their independence. In 1994, Ukraine will give up the nuclear weapons that remain from the Soviet Union. They will be transported to Russia, and the guarantees for Ukrainian the integrity of Ukrainian borders will be given by the United States, United Kingdom, and Russia. And we know how that went. In 2012, President Yanukovych will be elected with a program of uniting with the European Union. But in 2013, he will suddenly refuse to sign the agreement with European Union, and he will announce that he wants to have to increase the ties with Russia again. So there was a student protest on the Independence Square, Maidan Nezalezhnosti. That peaceful protest was brutally repressed by the police. And then the Ukrainian people erupted in much bigger demonstrations. Because of that, there was an agreement between the parliament and the president to establish the impeachment vote. But the President Yanukovych left before the impeachment vote would be conducted on February 2014. And on May 2014, there will be an election in Ukraine, and the democratic process will be restored. Unfortunately, in this 3 months, the awful thing will happen. In April 2014, Russian troops will enter Crimea. They will enter the cities here, Melitopol, Mariupol. They will also enter here in the Donbas region. In Crimea, they will hold the referendum. Ukrainian Navy would betray their country and side with Russians. It's a very sad story in our history. People would repel the spec ops that tried to capture this region. So just simple people, because the Ukrainian army was in shambles at the time. And basically the Crimea will remain in Russian hands. And the two republics will be established here unlawfully under the help of the Russian troops, the Donetsk Republic and Lugansk Republic. And that's how the 2014 went out. So there will be a continuous fighting between the Ukrainian forces and the rebels supported by Russia here. So there was a fighting on the border. There were not any attempts to harm the civil population. For example, 2020, 2021, over 2 years, only 5 civilians would be killed by both sides in this conflict. So it's really an attempt of holding this border and nothing else. And unfortunately, on February 24th, Russian troops will attack Ukraine from 7 directions, mainly from the north, from the southeast, from the southwest, from the northeast, and from the south, and try to capture Ukraine. And we very much hope and pray that Ukraine will repel this aggression and will even build a better peace structure for the whole world. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting Ukraine. You are wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ilya. We have one last new addition. Natalka Polskura is going to come and just give us a brief explanation of what the word Ukraine means, correct?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm from your neighbor town. I'm from Bedford. I am so happy that you have such a great place. You created it by your own. I could not be silent, and I could not say something very sacral about the name of my country. Ilya made absolutely great tell you our history so briefly and so great. And Ilya, I think you allowed me to contribute something. I grew up, I was blessed to be born into the dissidents family, you will name it like this. And when I came from the school, I said, you know, what is the meaning of our country? This is Borderland. It's on the board. It's Russian border, that's it. And my father and told me, take this book, read it, and understand what is the sacred meaning of our land. In the word Ukraine, Ukraine, there is a part Rai. It means in Ukrainian language heaven. And for me, this is the great explanation why our people protecting our country. Not like something are protecting our heaven on this earth, given us from God. This is our name, Ukrainian, and is name of our country. And thank you very much. I think different meanings. If we are looking for different meanings, more than better. Yeah. But this is the meaning for me. And also, thank you very much for supporting for my country. Yeah.
All right, thank you everybody. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you to all our presenters. I think it really gave us a very a very different and much more, much deeper understanding of Ukraine and Ukrainian people and Ukrainian culture. So I thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.